In 1998, social scientist Deborah Tannen wrote the book The Argument Culture Stopping America's War on Words. Now, as a quick review, remember that culture includes five main components. They are technology, values, norms, symbols, and language. And also remember that there are three main modern perspectives in sociology: functionalism, which looks at order and stability in a society; conflict, which focuses on power relations; and interactionism, which focuses on how individuals interact with one another in everyday life. Now, in her book, Tannen approaches a look at American society by focusing on the language and symbol elements of a culture. However, she also shows how deeply embedded this can be in the shared values of a society and what is determined as being right and wrong, good and bad, desirable and undesirable. So, listen to how she introduces this book. Notice the focus on language and culture. Also, notice her emphasis on the conflict perspective. This book is about a pervasive, warlike atmosphere that makes us approach public dialogue and just about anything else we need to accomplish as if it were a fight. The argument culture urges us to approach the world and the people in it in an adversarial frame of mind. It rests on the assumption that opposition is the best way to get things done. The best way to discuss an idea is to set up a debate. The best way to cover news is to find spokespeople who express the most extreme, polarized views and present them as both sides. The best way to settle disputes is litigation that pits one party against the other. The best way to begin an essay is to attack someone. And the best way to show you're really thinking is to criticize. The war on drugs, the war on cancer, the battle of the sexes, politicians' turf battles. In the argument culture, war metaphors pervade our talk and shape our thinking. Nearly everything is framed as a battle or game in which winning or losing is the main concern. These all have their uses and their place, but they are not the only way, and often not the best way, to understand and approach our world. Conflict and opposition are necessary, as cooperation and agreement. But the scale is off balance with conflict and opposition overweighted. Now, I find this to be a very interesting research, and her conclusions as to how our American society actually works in the interaction with one another is truly fascinating. From her study, and based on the introduction to her book, she believes that in American society, we have come to value exchange of interaction that is based on competition and conflict over interaction that is based on cooperation and accommodation. So, in this statement, she is really drawing upon the five main forms of social interaction that sociologists have identified and that will be identified in the reading that you will do for today. In fact, the main idea you want to keep in mind when reading is this: sociologists identify five common forms of social interaction: exchange, competition, conflict, cooperation, and accommodation. So, as you are reading, you want to make sure that you understand and can explain these five forms of social interaction. So, to do so, I recommend that you create a plan for reading and note taking. Now, plan stands for the four steps that you can take in approaching taking notes on a reading section. First, what you want to do is predict the main idea and then plot how they are organized. So, in the middle of your notebook page, in a rectangle box, what you want to do is write down the main idea, which for this section is the types of interaction. Next, what you want to do is locate the topics. That is, you want to locate the topics that you already know something about and which you know little about. So what you want to do is put the bold subheadings from the text in ovals surrounding the square. Now for this section, there will be 5, and these are the 5 forms of social interaction: exchange, competition, conflict, cooperation, and accommodation. Then what you will want to do is put an X to the topics that you know something about and a question mark to the topics that you know little about. The next step is you want to add information. As you begin reading this section now, you have a framework as to how the section is laid out. Add key words and their definitions. Add new information that you come across that will give you greater understanding of these topics, especially the ones that you marked with a question mark. So for exchange, you would probably want to identify things such as reciprocity, rewards, and self-interest. Now finally, the final step in this process is you want to note what you learned. Go back and see how the whole section fits together. In your own words, would you be able to explain the main idea and central topics covered? Can you define the key words that are presented in them?